For my first lesson, the content was physical science, more specifically, matter and its interactions. Students were describing and classifying different kinds of materials by their observable properties. Students were given different liquids such as water, vegetable oil, corn syrup, and they were asked to make Venn diagrams in order to compare and contrast their different physical properties. Students were then given a sample of crude oil, and they were asked to compare the two samples of crude oil as well as compare the other liquids they had previously compared to the oil. This helps students to understand what makes different liquids unique and what they are able to classify them by. For my second lesson, the content was Earth and Space Science, more specifically, Earth and Human Activity. Students were obtaining information to describe that energy and fuels are derived from natural resources and their uses affect the environment. Students were using bread, paprika, sunlight, and books to be able to simulate and understand how oil is formed in our Earth. Both of my lessons are designed for fourth grade students. This means that the students are in the concrete operational stage. They can think logically about concrete objects and can thus add and subtract. The student can also understand conservation. During both of my lessons, students are observing, describing, and classifying different kinds of materials by their observable properties, and they are also using their prior information to describe what they know and what they can conclude from making different observations. During the first lesson, hot seat questioning was used at the beginning to determine students' prior knowledge and to get them thinking about different physical properties in liquids. I think, I rethink statements were also used to get the students to make a prediction and then reevaluate at the end of the lesson based on what they learned about physical properties and how they think that relates to oil. Group talk feedback was also used in order to get the students thinking about the comparisons between the different liquids and how that compares to oil. And at the end of the lesson, what I learned today was also used in order to give the teacher a better idea of what the students learned and where they stand with the content. In the second lesson, the teacher used hot seat questioning at the beginning and a simulation with books to get students thinking about which book was the newest and oldest based on where it was placed on the floor. Students also used I think, I rethink statements to talk about what they think will happen when simulating the formation of oil with bread. And then at the end of the lesson, they make a rethink statement talking about what did happen and why. Students also used group talk feedback as well as the teacher in order to talk about and determine what the different ways of forming natural gas and other fossil fuels are. At the end of the lesson, the teacher used what I learned today to determine how students know which layers of the earth are older than others and why they think that. My students really loved my first lesson. They were really interested in answering questions. They loved measuring the different liquids. They were really good with comparing and contrasting, and overall they had a great time and learned a lot of science. My teacher was really awesome about giving me suggestions, telling me how I should teach it, how I should ask the questions before teaching the lesson, and then after, she said it went really well and thought that the students learned a lot and that I did a great job. My students were really excited about the second lesson as well. They really liked the idea of each having their own stack of bread and simulating it. It was a 2-day lesson, and so when they came back the second day, they were really excited to see their bread and make observations and talk about why they think what happened. My teacher was really supportive and helpful during the entire lesson, and after, she said it went really well and thought I did a great job as well. For my first lesson, I was a little worried about teaching science for the first time, and I wasn't sure how my students were going to react. I had not really seen my teacher teach science to the class before, so I wasn't sure what to expect when teaching science. It went really well, and there's not much I would change. I think that the students were really engaged. The only thing is just passing out the different liquids and materials was a little bit time consuming and kind of difficult to do with that age group. So just being more conscious about that and doing it more strategically next time would definitely help. I think going into the second lesson, I was definitely less nervous than the first one. I wasn't sure how the bread simulation was going to work, but it ended up working out really well, and the students really enjoyed it. I think that next time having an area of more direct sunlight and more direct pressure would make it go a little smoother, and the students would be able to get more of an even observation between all of their bread stacks. But overall, it went well, and they enjoyed it.